Hello there. Today we have an interview with Mr. David Petrarca. He is one of the director of the Game of Thrones. So, hello, Mr. David.
How are you? Nice to be here.
And thank you for accepting our request to give us an interview.
Absolutely. Pleasure to be here.
First, I would like to ask about your impression to be here in Mongolia. Is it your first time here?
It's my first time in Mongolia. I actually filmed in Kazakhstan, so I wasn't far away. But it's my first time in Mongolia. I find it to be stunning landscape, beautiful landscape, lovely people, and so far, fantastic.
Which movies filming were there in Kazakhstan?
We were shooting part of Marco Polo, the television series Marco Polo.
Yes, we know.
Yeah, so we did quite a bit of shooting in Kazakhstan, and then we shot the rest of it in Malaysia.
And are you planning to have a shooting here in Mongolia or not?
I would like to in the future. That's why we're here, right? To try to figure out if there's ways in which we can help Mongolia get more filming and projects that we can bring here to help celebrate both the countryside and also the people of Mongolia.
Do you have a planning to visit our countryside?
Yeah, I think right after, a couple days from now, we're taking a trip out into the countryside, which I'm very much looking forward to.
And first of all, what would you like to experience or do in the countryside?
I like to see the vistas of the landscape. I'm curious about the local customs, what's important to the Mongolian people. We've worked, because of Marco Polo, we worked with quite a few Mongolian actors, and we worked with Bela. And then we also brought in quite a few other for stunts and horse riding and that kind of stuff. And they were amazing and gave the show real authenticity, which was important to us. So, yeah, I mean, the more that I get to know about the country, the more that you get to know about the DNA of what Mongolia is. Obviously, I'm always fascinated by cultures that, particularly Mongolian culture, which at one point pretty much ran the world. I'd like to know what the experience of that is now, how people feel about that now, the kind of rebirth of Mongolia as a democracy. All of that really fascinates me.
And it's really interesting that why you wanted to work on Marco Polo film, because Marco Polo is one of our history's part. Yeah,
well, one of the greatest stories in the world. I mean, one of the greatest stories with huge scope, and a very important part of world history that actually in the West a lot of people don't know about. I don't think people in the West kind of sometimes think the West is the only thing that exists. And Marco Polo, when you go back and look at what Alexander the Great, Marco Polo, Julius Caesar, there's certain people who had such an amazing amount of world power and ability to kind of control the world, and basically the contributions that the Mongolians have made to the world through Marco Polo and since then, right? Accounting systems. There are so many things that the Mongolians kind of advanced society, particularly in China at the time. And I don't think the whole world's aware of that, of the contributions of what the Mongolian people have really made. So it's important to set the record straight and for people in the world to understand and appreciate the depth of culture that is in Mongolia.
And also, do you know that there are a lot of viewers of Game of Thrones in Mongolia?
Yeah.
Huge tons of people are waiting for the next episode of Game of Thrones.
I couldn't tell you anything. I directed in season 2, so that I had a very small part. I directed 2 episodes in season 2 because I'm a freelance director, so I direct on many, many, many projects. Game of Thrones being one of many different shows that I've done. But I know it's popular everywhere.
Yes, and
do you think it's popular here because of like you think back to the Mongolian, like Genghis Khan, and there's kind of a sense of that even in kind of conquering and the politics of conquering and all of that.
Yes, maybe. Yeah, maybe a part of that. And also it's really interesting to watch.
Yeah.
Yes, of course. True. Yeah, and also I know that you are worked on a lot of series of HBO.
Yes, quite a bit. 5 years of series: Boardwalk Empire, True Blood, Big Love, Hung, more, but yeah, it's a great. HBO was a very, very wonderful, wonderful home for me for a long time, and the quality of the shows remains really, really, really high, and it's always been a pleasure to work for them.
And also, during your visit here, you are going to have a workshop for our Mongolian artists. And what is your workshop will be?
Mine's more about sharing my process as a director, how to approach kind of I think that directing involves left brain and right brain thinking. There's the creative side, but there's also the organizational side. That how do you give form to inspiration? How do you break it down so that you're able to make conscious the unconscious and find ways to visually storytell that are compelling? And I think that's a lot of what I'm going to try to share. Hopefully it'll work.
And have you seen our Mongolian movies?
I'm going to cheat because I've seen movies about Mongolia. Of course.
Not the movies made by Mongolian artists.
Right, but like the movie Mongol, right? But a lot of Mongol was shot in Russia, right? Not much was shot here, but I think it did a really great job of introducing the world to Mongolia and got people fascinated. Also about the female eagle huntress, documentary about that. That's a spectacular story. That's a spectacular story that should be made into a narrative movie, not just a documentary. It's a great story. Very relevant today too. Also with everything that, about women coming to the forefront, that would be a really great story to tell.
And also, what do you think do we have a possibility to be a part of Hollywood for our artists?
You already are. You're a part of it if you believe you're a part of it. There's no magic to it. I think in order for Mongolia to kind of, a couple things I think about that. I think that local filmmakers need to also, probably just to get on the world stage, teach the actors English and make some English language movies in Mongolia by Mongolians. And I know that's like a little bit against culture, but in order to open up the ideas of Mongolia to the world and the film market to the world, you already, obviously you have what, 3 million people in Mongolia? So that limits the kind and scale of movie you can do just from the finances, right? If only 3 million people can see it, then you can only make movies at a lower cost. But if you made English language movies, suddenly the world is open to you. So I'm talking about Mongolian movies about Mongolian subject matters, using Mongolians, but doing it in English and trying to expand the footprint of Mongolian filmmaking across, the world. Once you do that, once you open it up, the world will come, right? I also think, I guess you could also do Mongolian movies in Chinese and open up a whole market there too, right? So I think the language barrier is the hardest thing to overcome, but very easy to overcome, right? And then, we live in a world where, unfortunately, the audience is not as accustomed anymore to translating and reading subtitles. So I think that's a easy, doable thing. I think also that Mongolians need to tell stories with size and scope and large ideas, big ideas. And while you can either make them as big ideas, but also small ideas that resonate in a big way. So coming, with universal ideas, human saga. Like I said, the story of the female huntress, eagle huntress, that would resonate around the world. That's a really amazing story about a young woman, and that translates. So finding the stories in the mythology that translate the culture while also celebrating the culture.
Mm-hmm. Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
And thank you for being here and being part of
here.
my culture.
It's been lovely, and I appreciate everybody.
Mm-hmm. And I'm very happy to see here in Mongolia.
All right, thank you.